What's going on, guys? Welcome to the first official episode of the City Rebuild series, where we're building a brand new city from scratch. Now, if you guys have been following along for the last few videos, then you know that we are taking down our beloved city that has been basically being built for the last 3 years and essentially starting from scratch. More on that in a moment. If you watched last week's episode, then you know that we are doing Los Angeles on one side, which we revealed by showing you guys the Aon Center that we built last week. And then we're doing New York on the other side, which is in the future. So, in order to get this going, we had to take down the city as you guys know it. Now, Miss AFL TV was out of town, but I went ahead and got started on the takedown of the city, and it was a huge undertaking. When you're taking a city down, there's a lot to keep in mind. First, it's best to just remove all the vehicles so you get them out of the way. Because when you're pulling the city apart, a lot of things can get damaged, right? So you want to remove all the minifigs, all the vehicles, and all the details that you can. And that includes any small items, or in our case, some things that were sitting out, including like the lifeguard chair, just extra street details that you really don't want damaged while you're moving everything. Next was working on the palm trees, which also, trees, greenery, really anything that could detach itself when you're moving the city needs to come down. And we did this during our last move as well, and it worked really well. So once we got the streets clean, then it was time to start actually ripping apart the city. Luckily, all of our buildings are very easy to move. They're all very sturdy, and some of them are modular, so pulling these apart was pretty simple. Now, going forward, we're going to be completely changing the road system. So we wanted to focus on getting the buildings out, but it didn't matter if the road broke while we were taking them out because all of that is going to change anyway. So basically just started ripping it apart because honestly, all of that is going to change. And then once we got the buildings out, it was on to the really big skyscrapers in the back. And these guys are pretty heavy. Even though they're Lego, you'd be surprised with just how heavy they really are. So in order to do so, it was best just to kind of clear the whole area, including the tables, so I could really get back there and be able to lift them up. And if you guys don't know, what we do is we use IKEA lemon tables because they're very easy to move around and take down when you don't need to use them. And then we put plywood on top, which we just get from the hardware store. We usually get pre-cut 2 feet by 4 feet plywood sections, and then we link them together. And honestly, we've used this approach for the last 3-4 years, and it works really well because as we change the city over time, it allows us to kind of expand or even just change the layout of the tables in general. I feel like, there's a lot of builders out there who get custom tables made or they build their own, and that's great. And honestly, it creates a much more level surface for you to work on. So I think that if you aren't moving around a lot, then it can definitely be a pro way to go or the right way to go for that situation. But for us, because we're moving the city around constantly and changing things up constantly, it just makes sense for it to be much more customizable. And therefore, the IKEA tables with the wood seems to really work. So after taking everything out, there was one section of the city that we're actually going to leave behind. And that was the area with the tram, because we're going to reincorporate that into the new city. So we had to basically adjust all the roads that fit into that, including taking the 2-lane road in the front down to a 1-lane for the new city layout. So that was a lot of work and engineering. And honestly, even though this is a time lapse, this took a few hours just to get this all figured out and get it readjusted. Now, you might be wondering, why is the crosswalk so far off? Well, there's actually a plan for that in the future. There's going to be a pedestrian bridge there, and there's going to be probably some terrain back here as well. So we have a specific area of LA that we're designing for this back portion, and that's why the crosswalk is offset like that. But everything else in this area needed to be readjusted, including the sidewalk cuts for where they go down onto the street for people to walk across. The rails needed to be fixed, and everything had to be adjusted for the new street layout that's going to run on the front side of the city. And it's always quite amazing to me just how long road work takes with these new road plates, because you're not using just the road plate. At least we aren't. We've done a lot of tutorials on how to make them a little bit more upgraded from what Lego offers. And that's, creating the white lines on the side as well as the stop bars and some other details. And it takes a lot more effort. There's no doubt about that. It's definitely more expensive. But in our opinion, it looks a lot better than just the standard road plates that you get from Lego. And it really just helps to elevate the city and make it look a lot more real. Another option that we could have gone with is the fully brick-built mill system. And while that, in our opinion, looks the best, it looks, superior than the road plate system, it's also a lot more expensive, especially for the larger cities out there. And for us, we'd rather spend the money on the skyscrapers or the airport or other detailed parts of the city and just let the roads be, basically a modified version of what Lego already puts out. Because I think At the end of the day, these are pretty detailed when you put them all together, especially when there's multiple lanes and other details. And I think for our city, it works just fine. Maybe in the New York City section, we'll do some Mills roads. We'll see. But for the LA portion, we're sticking with kind of the road design that we've been using throughout. And the goal of the city is going to be like an LA downtown core. And then there's going to be a separate section, which is a kind of Santa Monica area, which I'm going to show you in a moment. And that's going to be split by this double road here that I was building with an enlarged bike path compared to some of the roads that we used to have in the city where the bike path was only 2 studs wide. This bike path is actually going to be 4 studs wide to allow for more bike traffic. It is going to be the only area in the city with a bike path, but it is the main thoroughfare for this area, so we thought it made the most sense. The other areas, we are condensing the roads to focus more on the larger buildings. And this entire layout was planned out ahead of time, so we knew where each section was going to go. But you can see like just how quickly stuff starts to line up and take place if you build these in sections. It makes it just a lot easier kind of after you lay everything out. You can see the white and green base plates that we alternated. That just helps to measure everything as we're laying it out to make sure that we're doing it at the right spot. And so we use this technique to kind of create a grid pattern for the city from a visual standpoint that makes it a lot easier to lay everything out. And here is the result so far. So as you guys can see, the beach is completely gone. What we're going to be doing is basically trying out a whole new type of terrain and technique for making the beach. So that'll be a lot of fun to put down, which is why it's all blank here right now. But let me walk you guys through the city planning and what we have going on so far. So if I take a step back, you can see it's a pretty sizable city area. Some of the remnants of the old city is over here. This is going to be a new filming station right here. And then over here will be New York once it's cleared out. But if I go to a wide angle view, you can kind of see, so over here, filming, over here, New York, once clean. And then over here is the entire new city area. Now, a few months prior to rolling this out, we asked you guys what you really wanted to see in the city. And a lot of you guys said less roads, more buildings. So one major difference that we're doing this time around is instead of having a double lane road up front, which took up a lot of space, it's going to be just single lane both direction. And then we're doing a main drive aisle down the middle. So that way it doesn't eat up a whole chunk of the beginning of the city. From there, it'll spill into the beach area. And we're either going to turn this into the pier or the pier will come off right here. And it's going to be modeled after Santa Monica Pier. And then this area down here is going to be kind of smaller buildings. This paper right here is laying out a future street that's going to go this way. More on that to come. And then on this side will be the gas station. There'll be smaller buildings over here. There's going to be one famous building right here. I don't want to give it away yet. And then it's going to move into the taller buildings except for Skyloft. And as you probably noticed, Skyloft was spared. The reason why is that's actually based off of a building here in Southern California. So we wanted to keep that. We have the Aon Center down there, which is going to be anchoring the skyline for now until we fill in the rest of it with downtown LA. And then the only other building that was saved was the Astoria, which is modeled off Waldorf Astoria in Beverly Hills. So this one is staying as well because that is from LA. But everything else was removed. And so we've been really hard at work, as you guys saw, building the streets and laying out the new layout because we want to make sure that we get the streets right before we start building all the buildings and adding those in. So what we've been doing is making sure that everything kind of comes together. And in the last cities, we had little pieces of street here and there that were kind of odd. So we're trying to really make sure that this layout makes a lot of sense prior to putting the buildings down. And so if you really look at it, obviously these are gray 48 by 48 base plates. The Aon sits on a 32 by 32. So you get a sense that it actually can fit a lot of buildings. If you think about it, it's probably about 6 per table. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we'll have 6 here, probably 3 here, about 4 right here. And then we have some stuff planned for back here. Moving to this side, again, we'll have some buildings back here, a famous one right here, smaller stuff right here, that street right there, then the gas station in the back. And then the pier will either be right here or right here. Now, one other thing to show you guys, which you may or may not recognize, but we actually already updated the trim. So in LA, the metro lines are all yellow, dark gray, and white. So this has now been updated to fit in with the new color palette of downtown LA, rather than our former Miami look and feel. So we're really excited with the new layout. I think there's gonna be a lot of really cool stuff coming out. And the best part about this is that there's so much blank space. It's essentially a giant canvas to work with. So we have a lot of stuff planned and I'm really excited to show you guys. So be sure that you subscribe and that you're following along because there's much more to come. But for the remainder of this video, there is one more thing that we want to start working on. And that is, if you can't tell, there's some stuff missing from the streets. Minifigs, trees, and other details. So we're going to end this video by putting all those details back into the city. So if you recall from the start of the video, we basically collected everything from the city before taking it down, and it was a lot. I was surprised how many trees we actually had. I forgot we had so many palm trees. So it was great to see we had all those, as well as traffic lights and train crossings and a bunch of other items ready to go straight into the city without needing to rebuild them or build them from scratch. It's not enough for the new city, but it's enough to at least get started. So we focused on the area kind of around Skyloft to begin with, and we started by placing trees kind of around Skyloft. There used to be a palm tree in that little planter area, but we also thought that it'd be kind of cool if we added some additional plants. We added one bush and then we tried to put another one in, but it didn't quite fit. So then it was on to placing other items around, which was a bench. We added a trash can because there's a restaurant right there, Starbucks, and additional street details, which we plan to carry throughout the city. So it was great adding all these back because it just adds a little bit of extra life to the city, you know, as you rebuild it. And then after that, we wanted to just add a couple more palm trees to the little planter right by Starbucks just to really make it look, you know, tropical and like it would in California, and had to fix the bench because I moved that by accident. So then after that, we thought, okay, this looks really good. I think this will be a good anchor for the downtown area of LA. And we wanted to make the median look really good as well. So for this area, we started by adding traffic lights because we needed to figure out where those would go first prior to adding all of the trees and the greenery. And for this, we wanted to do the shorter traffic lights. There should be enough distance there for anybody stopped at the line to be able to look up and see it. But we didn't want to do the big hangover traffic lights because they basically just weigh too much. And over time, they start to bend. So these shorter traffic lights that we came out with recently, we've really been enjoying because they stay straight, they don't bend over, and they work really well for what we're trying to do with the city. And then we had to also kind of adjust them a little bit based on where they were elsewhere in the city prior to their new homes, just to make sure they all, you know, lined up and made sense where they're going in. From there, we wanted to, you know, create some protection for the dedicated bike lane. So we added these little pole lights, or I don't really know what you call them, but basically they just help protect the bike lane from traffic on the street. And, you know, we did a double bike lane this time, so there's a lot more room for people to bike around, which is great. After all, this main road basically leads to the beach, so what better place to have a bike lane than right here? And following the bike lane completion, well, we're still waiting on some parts for the blue, but it was pretty much complete. We wanted to start placing trees in the median. And at first we thought down here kind of looked good, but then it was starting to block Skyloft, so ended up taking them out from right here and reshuffling kind of where we ended up putting the palm trees to the middle area, because it just, in our opinion, looked better to leave Skyloft with a little bit more room to be able to see it, especially when we're filming and taking photos of the city in the future for Instagram or whatever else. We want to make sure that there's a good window into Skyloft. And we still have a lot more trees and details to place, so those will come along in the next few videos. But guys, that's it for today. We just wanted to show you kind of the start of the new city area. We hope you enjoyed seeing it. There's obviously a ton of work to do, and we're so excited with everything that's coming out soon. So make sure you're subscribed and following along, because we have a lot of new videos and content coming along. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next video.